Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. In the previous session we have completed the topic of pulmonary ventilation, in which we studied about the different lung volumes and capacities. In today's lecture we are going to talk about two important topics. The first topic that we are going to discuss is respiratory dead space, and the second topic that we are going to discuss is alveolar ventilation. So we will start with our first topic, which is the respiratory dead space. The dead space in the respiratory system is constituted or formed by those parts of respiratory system which do not take part or which are not involved in exchange of respiratory gases. So those parts where no exchange of respiratory gases occur, those constitute the respiratory dead space. The air which is present in these parts of respiratory tracts is known as the dead space air. Again, I am repeating that dead space is formed by the parts of the respiratory system which are not involved in gas exchange process, and the air which is present in these parts of respiratory tract is known as dead space air. Now, the respiratory dead space is of two types: the anatomical dead space and physiological dead space. First, we are going to discuss about the anatomical dead space. Anatomical dead space is formed by the respiratory passages which are not involved in the exchange of respiratory gases. Now, the parts of respiratory passages which are not involved in gaseous exchange include the conducting zone of the airways. The conducting zone of the airways from nose to the terminal bronchioles. All these parts of respiratory tract are not involved in gaseous exchange, as we have already studied, and they serve to conduct the air to the terminal part of the respiratory tract where gaseous exchange is going to take place. So in healthy normal individuals, the gas exchange, it occurs in the terminal parts of the respiratory tract, while the conducting zone of the respiratory tract is not involved in gaseous exchange. So that conducting zone of the airways, it constitutes the anatomical dead space. Now, the volume of air in the anatomical dead space is 150 ml. The volume of air present in the anatomical dead space is 150 ml. When a person inhales, all of the air that is taken into the lungs, it does not reach the gas exchange areas, but some volume of air is going to fill these parts of respiratory tract that are the conducting zones, and this is not going to take part in gaseous exchange, and that volume of air which will fill these anatomical dead space areas is 150 ml. So out of a tidal volume of 500 ml, 350 ml of air will reach the terminal portions of the respiratory system, and it will be involved in gaseous exchange, while rest 150 ml will fill the anatomical dead space. And when the person is going to exhale out, the air in these passages is expelled first during process of expiration. So this is the anatomical dead space. Again, I am going to repeat it up, that anatomical dead space is formed by those parts of respiratory tracts which are not involved in the gaseous exchange, and these are the conducting zones of the respiratory tract from nose to the terminal bronchiole, and the volume of air which is present in the in these parts of respiratory tract is 150 ml. Now, what is the significance of dead space? Apparently, it seems like that the dead space is not advantageous. it is disadvantageous. But in fact this is not so, because the anatomical dead space, it does carry some advantages. The anatomical dead space, it is involved in the conditioning of the air that we have studied in the beginning, in the first lecture, that when air it passes through the conducting zone of the respiratory tract, the air is warmed, it is humidified, and it is filtered while passing through the initial parts of the respiratory tract or the conducting parts of the respiratory tract. So the dead space, the anatomical dead space, is not totally disadvantageous in the term that the air in these parts is not involved in the gaseous exchange, but it performs a very important function of conditioning of air. So when air it passes through these parts of the respiratory tract, it is warmed, it is humidified, and it is filtered of the particles present in it. So there is a significance of the anatomical dead space, and it is not totally disadvantageous. Now we are going to study different factors that can affect the volume of anatomical dead space. First is the gender. The volume of anatomical dead space is less in females as compared to males. This is the normal or physiological variation. Again, I am repeating that the volume of anatomical dead space is less in females as compared to males. Now, second variation or second physiological factor that affects the volume of anatomical dead space is age. With increasing age or with advancing age, the volume of anatomical dead space is increased. With advancing age, the volume of anatomical dead space is increased. Then the volume of anatomical dead space also changes during inspiration and expiration. During the two phases of respiration, there is a slight change in the volume of anatomical dead space. During inspiration, the volume of anatomical dead space increases. I am repeating that during inspiration, the volume of anatomical dead space increases. This is because of the fact that during inspiration, there is expansion of the lungs. And due to expansion of the lungs, the airway in the lungs are also stretched. And due to stretching of the airways, the volume of anatomical dead space is increased during inspiration. During expiration, the volume of anatomical dead space slightly decreases, and there is decrease in the volume of anatomical dead space during expiration because of the fact that during expiration the lungs recoil, and due to which the airways are constricted, and this causes a slight decrease in the volume of anatomical dead space during inspiration. During deep inspiration, there is greater stretching of the airways, and there will be a greater increase in the anatomical dead space during inspiration. Next factor is breathing through a long tube. During artificial respiration, if the patient is connected to the source of breathing gas through a long tube, the volume of anatomical dead space is increased, because that tube will also constitute the part which is included in the anatomical dead space. This is apparatus related anatomical dead space. Again, I am repeating this point, that during artificial respiration or during deep anesthesia, if the patient is connected to the source of breathing gas through a long tube, then the volume of anatomical dead space is increased, and this is an increase due to apparatus related anatomical dead space. The long tube, it will act as an additional anatomical dead space. If a person is breathing through a hole made in the trachea, which is known as tracheostomy. Tracheostomy is an opening made in the trachea. So if a person is breathing through the hole made in the trachea, which is known as tracheostomy, the volume of anatomical dead space will decrease. Why it will decrease? Because the person is breathing through the trachea directly, and the airways above the trachea, these are excluded, like pharynx, larynx and the nose. So the volume of anatomical dead space is going to decrease if the person is breathing through a hole made in the trachea. Then drugs can also have effect on the volume of anatomical dead space. Bronchodilators are the drugs which cause bronchodilation and increase diameter of the airways. So bronchodilator drugs increase the volume of anatomical dead space, and the bronchoconstrictor drugs cause a decrease in the volume of anatomical dead space. So these are different factors which can affect the volume of anatomical dead space. Now, how we can measure the anatomical dead space? The anatomical dead space is measured by a method which is known as nitrogen washout method. Now, in nitrogen washout method, the person is asked to take a deep breath of pure oxygen. First, the person is made to take a deep breath of pure oxygen, and then the person expires through a rapidly recording nitrogen meter. Nitrogen meter records the concentration of nitrogen in the expired air. Now, when the person takes the deep breath of oxygen, of pure oxygen, the air in the respiratory passages is completely replaced by pure oxygen. That is the air in the anatomical dead space. It's completely replaced by the pure oxygen. And when the person begins to exhale out, the first portion of expired air, it comes from the anatomical dead space. Since the first portion of expired air is coming from the anatomical dead space, so it will be having completely pure oxygen. That will be pure oxygen coming out of the anatomical dead space. So nitrogen meter will show a zero concentration of nitrogen. And when the anatomical dead space is exhaled out, anatomical dead space air is exhaled out, and alveolar air begins to reach the nitrogen meter, the nitrogen concentration will start rising rapidly, and then it will reach a plateau. Now, from this we can calculate the volume of anatomical dead space. Now, this is the graph of increasing nitrogen concentration as it is recorded from the nitrogen meter. We can see in this graph, on the x-axis we have the volume of expired air, and on the y-axis we have the percentage of nitrogen, that is the concentration of nitrogen. And what we do in this procedure is, first there is inspiration of pure oxygen, and then the person will start to exhale out into the rapidly recording nitrogen meter. The initial part of air that comes out is from the anatomical dead space, and it contains pure oxygen, and nitrogen concentration is zero. When the alveolar air begins to be exhaled out, the nitrogen concentration begins to increase rapidly, and then it reaches a plateau. Now, from this graph we can calculate the volume of anatomical dead space. And the formula which is used is volume of dead space is equal to gray area, this is the gray area, multiplied by volume of expired air divided by pink area plus gray area plus the pink area. Now assuming that gray area is 30, the pink area is 70, and volume of expired air is equal to the tidal volume, which is 500 ml. So we can calculate the volume of the dead space. 30 divided by 30 plus 70 multiplied by 500 will give us a value of 150 ml, which is the volume of anatomical dead space. So from this formula we can calculate the volume of anatomical dead space, and this method is the nitrogen washout method for determination of anatomical dead space. Now we will move on to the other type of the dead space. In the beginning we have said that there are two types of respiratory dead space, the anatomical that we have just discussed, the other type is physiological dead space. The physiological dead space is also known as total or functional dead space. Now physiological dead space is the total amount of inspired air that does not take part in gaseous exchange. So it is not just the air in the conducting zone, but it is the total amount of inspired air that does not take part in the gaseous exchange. So it means that it has something else in addition to the anatomical dead space. That additional volume which is present in physiological dead space is the alveolar dead space. So physiological dead space include the total amount of air which is not involved in gaseous exchange, and it is equal to the sum of anatomical dead space and an additional volume of air which is the alveolar dead space. Now we will learn more about the alveolar dead space. First have a look on this diagram. This shows us different types of dead space. So anatomical dead space that we have already discussed, it is formed by the parts of the respiratory tract which are involved in conduction of air to the terminal parts. So all these parts, trachea, bronchi and the bronchioles till terminal bronchioles, they form the anatomical dead space. And this is the tube which is connected to the airways, and this constitute the apparatus related dead space that I just told you in the factors affecting the volume of anatomical dead space. The other dead space is the alveolar dead space, and these two together form the physiological dead space. Now under some pathological condition, some of the alveoli become non-functional due to poor blood supply. It means if the blood supply to a part of lung is decreased, or there is obstruction of the blood supply to a part of the lungs, the alveoli will become non-functional. They cannot take part in the gaseous exchange. Now these non-functioning alveoli create an additional dead space which is known as alveolar dead space. Now the total dead space including the anatomical and alveolar dead space is known as physiological dead space. Now the air which is present in these non-functioning alveoli, it constitutes the wasted ventilation. What does it mean? It means that these alveoli are ventilated, means when you breathe in, the new air reaches these alveoli, but that air in these alveoli cannot take part in gaseous exchange because there is no blood supply to these alveoli. And due to this, the air which is present in these alveoli is wasted. and this is known as wasted ventilation. Now the question is, what can be the factors which can decrease the blood supply to a part of the lung? It can be simple because of severe vasoconstriction, which will decrease the blood supply, or it can be due to thrombotic occlusion of a branch of the pulmonary artery, or it can be due to embolism. So there can be different causes. There are many causes for decreased blood supply to a part of the lung, and decreased blood supply will result in non-functioning alveoli forming the alveolar dead space, and the total dead space in this situation will be known as physiological dead space, in which there are two entities, two volumes are there, anatomical and the alveolar dead space. Now in healthy individuals, all the alveoli are functionally normal. So the alveoli become functionless, or they do not take part in gaseous exchange, usually under the abnormal or pathological conditions. In healthy individual, all the alveoli are functional, means they are involved in gaseous exchange. So alveolar dead space is negligible or zero. So in this situation, in healthy individuals, the anatomical and the physiological dead space are equal. So we can say that in healthy individual, the total dead space or the physiological dead space is also 150 ml, which is the volume of anatomical dead space. And the reason for this is that alveolar dead space in healthy individual is negligible or zero, due to which the anatomical and physiological dead space are equal. But under pathological conditions, when alveolar dead space is produced, the physiological dead space, it becomes greater than the anatomical dead space. Now factors or the causes of the physiological dead space. Now in healthy individuals, in normal individual, a very small amount of alveolar dead space is present in the upper part of the lungs, in the lung apices, in standing position. I am repeating that normally all the alveoli are functional in healthy individual, but in standing position, in the lung apices or the upper part of the lungs, there may be a slight degree of alveolar dead space because of decreased blood supply to the upper part of the lungs in standing position. But if the person changes from standing to lying position, the blood flow to the upper part of the lung is also increased and there is no alveolar dead space. So only in standing position, a very small amount of alveolar dead space is present only in the lung apices because of decreased blood supply to the upper part of the lungs, and this is very negligible, and it can increase when the blood supply to the part of the lung is decreased under pathological conditions. As I just told you that thrombosis can decrease the blood supply to a part of lungs. Embolism can be there, or there can be vasoconstriction decreasing the blood supply to the part of the lung. In that situation, a greater amount of alveolar dead space will be produced and there will be a significant amount of physiological dead space, or we can say that in that situation the physiological dead space will be greater than the anatomical dead space. Now look at this diagram. This shows us the two types of dead space, anatomical and the alveolar dead space. Anatomical dead space is formed by the airways, which are not involved in the gaseous exchange, while alveolar dead space is formed by the alveoli, which do not take part in gaseous exchange. So if there is loss of blood supply due to any reason, there can be many reasons, the gaseous exchange will not occur. This alveolus will become non-functional, and this will constitute the alveolar dead space. Or if the blood supply to the part is decreased, which is less than normal, less than which is required for gaseous exchange, again there will be less exchange of gases between this alveolar air and the blood in this pulmonary capillary, and this will also cause a partial dead space to be produced here, and these two alveoli will constitute the alveolar dead space, and the air which is present in these alveoli, it is wasted ventilation. Again, a diagram to show you the two types of dead space and the physiological dead space. So we have anatomical dead space and we have the alveolar dead space when there is no gas exchange because of decrease or loss of pulmonary blood flow, and these two together are known as physiological dead space. Again, the same thing, alveolar dead space and the anatomical dead space. Now, how to calculate the physiological dead space? So, physiological dead space is calculated by Bohr's equation. This is the Bohr's equation, where the volume of dead space is equal to tidal volume multiplied by partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air minus partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the expired air divided by partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air. Vt is the volume of dead space, physiological dead space. Vt is the tidal volume, which is 500 ml. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air is equal to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood, and it has a value of 40 millimeter of mercury. And partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the expired air is equal to 28 millimeter of mercury. So by putting the values in this formula, we can calculate the volume of physiological dead space. 40 millimeter of mercury is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air. 28 is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the expired air. 500 is your tidal volume, and when you calculate this, the volume of dead space, physiological dead space that we get is 150 ml. And again, here we can see that in healthy individuals, the anatomical and physiological dead space volume is equal because there is no alveolar dead space. So this is the diagram showing you the dead space. This is the alveolar air. This is the dead space, the volume of which is 150 ml. So when you inhale 500 ml, 150 will fill the this dead space, anatomical dead space, and 350 will reach the alveoli to take part in gaseous exchange. So from this we can get to the other topic, that is alveolar ventilation. Now, alveolar ventilation is defined as the rate at which new air reaches the gas exchange areas of the lungs. It is known as alveolar ventilation. In pulmonary ventilation, we define that as the volume of air moving into the respiratory passages. But in alveolar ventilation, we look at the volume of air that reaches the gas exchange areas of the lungs. So that volume of air which reaches the gas exchange areas of the lungs is alveolar ventilation. And after studying the dead space, we can very well know that the volume of new air in each breath reaching the alveoli is 350 ml. Because 150 will fill the dead space. It will fill the anatomical dead space. So we can calculate the rate of alveolar ventilation by this formula, where alveolar ventilation rate is equal to respiratory rate multiplied by tidal volume minus volume of dead space. So 350 ml since it's reaching the gas exchange areas or the alveoli. So 350 multiplied by 12 will give us a value of 4200 ml per minute, which is the alveolar ventilation rate. So out of 6000 ml, which is the pulmonary ventilation, which is the total volume of air that moves into the lungs each minute, 4200 ml will reach the gas exchange areas, and this is the alveolar ventilation. Now we are going to see the effect of different breathing patterns on the alveolar ventilation. So 3 breathing patterns we are going to see: quiet breathing at rest, deep slow breathing, and rapid shallow breathing effect on alveolar ventilation. Now first is the quiet breathing at rest. When you are breathing quietly at rest, the tidal volume is 500, the average respiratory rate is 12, dead space volume is 150, pulmonary ventilation is 6000, we have already discussed, and we just discussed that alveolar ventilation rate will be 4200 ml per minute. When breathing is deep and slow, what will be the effect on alveolar ventilation? Now deep breathing will cause increase in the tidal volume. It may reach as high as 1200 ml. Even the respiratory rate is decreased, it may be 5 breaths per minute, but the alveolar ventilation rate will become increased because of increase in the volume of air reaching the volume of new air reaching the alveoli because of increase in the tidal volume. So dead space volume will be the same, total pulmonary ventilation will be the same, but alveolar ventilation rate is increased in deep slow breathing. And shallow rapid breathing, the alveolar ventilation rate is decreased. How it is decreased? Because of shallow breathing, the volume of new air reaching the gas exchange areas will decrease, because air will just move into the dead space areas and then it will be taken out of the dead space areas because of shallow breathing during inspiration and expiration respectively. Again I am repeating, because of shallow breathing, the tidal volume will be decreased and it will be just filling the dead space, and very less amount of new air will be reaching the gas exchange areas. So despite the fact there is increase in the respiratory rate, the total pulmonary ventilation rate is normal, but alveolar ventilation rate is decreased and it may be zero because of shallow rapid breathing. So this is the effect of different types of breathing pattern on alveolar ventilation rate. So that's all for today, and I hope you will understand this lecture. This is the question that can come from this topic that we have discussed in today's lecture. So question that can come is, what is dead space? Means you have to define the dead space. Then give the types of dead space, means you have to give the two types, the alveolar and the anatomical dead space, and the combination of two known as the physiological dead space. Or simply you can say there are two types, physiological dead space and the anatomical dead space, and then in physiological dead space you can explain the alveolar dead space, and then the significance of dead space. Obviously this is the significance of the anatomical dead space, that it is involved in the conditioning of inspired air. So you must attempt this question for your practice of SCQs. That's all for today. Thank you so much.